It was a hot afternoon in Texas on July 1st, 2004, when the San Antonio Fire Department received multiple 911 calls from a frantic father reporting his 4-year-old stepson had fallen out of a tree and was having trouble breathing. When medical personnel arrived, they were shocked to find they were in the middle of a crime scene. JP was born July 28, 1999, to a 16-year-old mother, Jessica Mann, currently a high-ranking Bexar County Sheriff's deputy. Family members described JP as a rambunctious 4-year-old boy who was full of life and energy. He loved basketball, doing tricks on his skateboard, and playing video games. JP had dreams of becoming a professional basketball player when he grew up. His 5th birthday was just a few weeks away, and he asked for a PlayStation 2 as his birthday gift. Mann was a single mother of 2 small children, 3-year-old JP and his 1-year-old sister, when she became involved in a romantic relationship with Paul Castellano, who she met at work. JP's mother worked as an exotic dancer at a local strip club where she met her live-in boyfriend, Castellano. He lost his job at a local dry cleaners and became a house husband. He became the primary caretaker for Mann's 2 young children and the couple's newborn son, while Mann pole danced to financially support their family of 5. The young family lived in an apartment complex on the south side of San Antonio, Texas. On June 30, 2004, at about 3 p.m., Joshua and his sister returned to their mother's home after spending a couple of days with their father's side of the family. Mann was away at work, so the children were left in the care of their stepfather, Castellano. The children were returned to their home before the weekend due to a planned family road trip. July 1, 2004, Mann purchased some Happy Meals for the 2 small children before heading to work at 11 a.m. Little did she know this would be the last time her son would hug her goodbye. Castellano said he fed the children their chicken nuggets and then sent them both outdoors to play in the yard. Meanwhile, Castellano completed his house chores and cared for the 3-month-old infant. While JP was playing outdoors, he fell out of a tree that he was climbing and began choking on a chicken nugget. Castellano jumped into action to help JP by pushing on his stomach and performing CPR. He called EMS, but the telephone was disconnected. After multiple desperate attempts, he was finally able to get through to 911 to request emergency help for JP, who was having trouble breathing. Records indicate that the EMS call from Castellano came in at 4:47 p.m. When paramedics arrived, they found 4-year-old JP unresponsive, lying on the kitchen table and with vomit in his nose and mouth. As paramedics rendered aid to JP, they noticed he had multiple bruises on his body, including a black eye. When asked about JP's bruises, Castellano explained that JP's bruises were caused by his fall from the tree, and the black eye was caused by JP's younger sister the day before. Castellano said that he first took JP to the bedroom, but once he started convulsing, he laid him on the kitchen table and then called 911. Paramedics also noticed red spots on JP's face and chest. When paramedics checked JP's body temperature, they very quickly realized something about Castellano's story was not adding up. JP's body temperature read 92.4 degrees within a few minutes of EMS's arrival to the residence. Paramedics also noticed that JP's body had a waxy appearance, which is commonly seen in the active dying process of the human body. Paramedics decided to call police due to inconsistencies in Castellano's story about JP's physical injuries. Police on scene obtained permission from Castellano to search the home. EMS then transported JP to a nearby hospital where he was admitted. Police notify Mann, who was working at the strip club, about JP's emergency transport to the hospital by EMS. Mann, Castellano, and paramedics arrive at the hospital separately. Mann watched emergency personnel as they diligently performed CPR on little JP in effort to restart his heart. Medical personnel asked Mann if she wanted them to stop resuscitation efforts. Mann demanded that they continue trying to revive JP. Later that night, JP was pronounced deceased by doctors. homicide detectives were notified of JP's death and the suspicious circumstances. Upon arrival, detectives reviewed JP's hospital records and found that he had bruises all over his tiny body. He had a black eye, bruises to both arms, a bruise to the chest area, a bruise on his groin, and bruises to both of his legs. JP was cold and pale upon arrival to the hospital. There was an old bruise on his right ankle. There was a bruise and scab on his right rib. He had petechia on his face, which are red, brown, and purple spots from broken capillaries under the skin. He also had bruises down his spine and tailbone. Detectives transported Castellano to the police station for an interview. Detectives discovered that he had an active municipal court warrant, which could be used to hold Paul in custody if detectives needed additional time to acquire an arrest warrant for murder. Although he was not under arrest, detectives read Castellano his Miranda rights and had him sign the Miranda card as a precaution and obtained a statement from him. While at the hospital, Detective Slaughter asked Castellano for consent to search his residence. In effort to get Castellano to cooperate, he minimized the severity of the situation. He told Castellano that Child Protective Services were involved because there was an injured child, and they made the police ask a lot of questions. After Castellano gave consent to search the property, he voluntarily offered his statement. He said he was watching the kids since 11 a.m. when his girlfriend left to work. JP threw up once, then went outside to play for an hour, and then came back inside the house. JP asked for something to drink, and after he took a few drinks, he began throwing up again. Castellano said it was common for JP to eat and then throw up, as if it were a game to him. He said that sometimes Mann and himself had to force JP to eat. JP gagged for 5 minutes before he decided he should call EMS. He desperately tried to call EMS 3 times, but the telephone kept cutting out. He finally got through to emergency dispatchers, and they told him to immediately start CPR on JP. He performed CPR on JP for nearly 10 minutes until help arrived. When asked about JP's injuries, Castellano explained that the gash on JP's side happened while he was in the care of his uncle. He said that JP was popping wheelies on his bike 2 months ago and fell back and hurt himself. The scrapes on JP's left arm were from him climbing a fence. Castellano said that taking care of kids was stressful. Paul then said that JP had his father's bad attitude and temperament. After obtaining a statement from Castellano, detectives drove him back to the hospital. Detectives then transported JP's mother to the police station for her voluntary statement. Mann asked Castellano to go with her to the station, which detectives allowed. Mann gave her statement to detectives. She said that the day after Christmas 2003, JP fell off his skateboard and the sofa bed in the same day. JP had a CAT scan 2 months ago. JP was fine during the week and during the morning before she left to work. She also informed detectives that JP was with his grandmother for 2 days prior, Tuesday, June 29th and Wednesday, June 30th, 2004, suggesting that perhaps the injuries in question were the result of his 2-day visit to his grandmother's house. During both of their statements, Castellano and Mann offered multiple reasons for how JP received his injuries. They attributed most of the bruises to JP simply being an active 4-year-old. They both said that his black eye was the result of being hit with a toy by his 3-year-old sister. Detectives drove Castellano and Mann to his mother's residence after the interview. Child Protective Services informed detectives that the younger 2 children would be removed from their home until JP's cause of death was determined. Child Protective Services requested to be contacted after JP's autopsy was completed. CPS records indicated that in 2003, only 12 short months prior to JP's death, his family was investigated by CPS for alleged physical abuse to another child in the family. The investigation was closed when Child Protective Services failed to prove abuse of the child, and after 6 weeks the family refused to cooperate the CPS. The investigation continues, and detectives inquire and receive information from the San Antonio Fire Department about the emergency calls made by Castellano. San Antonio Fire Department time logs reflected the incident duration was 27 minutes long, from the time the call for service was received to the time the ambulance departed from the residence. Records proved that Castellano called 911 7 times, starting at 4:22 p.m. The call logs show the short durations of each call he made. 3 calls were over 1 minute long, and 4 calls were between 7 and 35 seconds. Emergency response dispatch logs documented when their emergency response units left their stations and arrived at JP's residence. A fire department ladder truck arrived at the scene at 4:23 p.m., 1 minute after Castellano's call to assist the dispatched EMS unit. The first EMS unit arrived at the scene 5 minutes after Castellano's first call for help. A backup EMS unit arrived 15 minutes after Castellano's first call. Responding EMT requested that San Antonio police officers report to the scene for a 4-year-old suffering from cardiac arrest 25 minutes after the first call. EMS departed the residence for Southwest General Hospital at 4:49 p.m., 27 minutes after the first call. Police officers arrived at the residence and secured the scene 20 to 30 minutes after the first call, until a consent to search the property was obtained. Once the consent to search the property was given by Castellano, the officers carefully processed the scene. They took photographs of the outside and inside of the residence, as well as items of interest in the home before those items were collected for evidence. Some items of interest from the inside of the home included a caller ID house phone, a cell phone, a baseball bat, and several bags of trash. Detectives reviewed Sergeant Smith's report from the scene. Sergeant Smith stated there were no obvious trees in the area or front of the house that JP could climb at his age. He found no evidence of vomit or chicken nuggets at the scene. Photos were taken of the interior of the home, which was filthy, disorganized, and had trash lying everywhere. Sergeant Smith tested a telephone he found in the kitchen and found that it did not work. He reported that the uniformed detective that collected the cell phone from the bedroom told him that the cell phone was powered on and it worked when the uniformed officer tried it. Sergeant Smith saw the wooden baseball bat that was found inside the baby's playpen, located in the bedroom. Detective Slaughter inspected the gray caller ID telephone that was found in the home. He found that the telephone base plug receptacle had broken keeper tabs. This would make it difficult for the telephone handset to maintain a connection to the telephone base unit, therefore making it unable to maintain an operable phone connection. On July 2nd, the autopsy and report are completed. They painted a horrifying picture of the brutal injuries that caused JP's death. The external examination of JP's body confirmed what emergency medical personnel observed. There were many minor bruises about JP's body. He had bruising to both ears, a large bruise on his chest, older bruising to upper legs and buttocks that were still purple in color. There was bruising to both the front and the back of both of his arms. He had a faint bruise to the front part of the neck. The ME also found petechia to the facial area, inner lips, and arms. The internal examination of JP's body shed light upon the unimaginable violence JP endured in his last moments of life. JP had an extensive amount of blood in his abdominal cavity. He had a lacerated liver, which was nearly cut in two. There was bruising found under the skin of the front side of his neck. There was also bruising under the muscle of the front side of his neck, consistent with strangulation. His pancreas showed evidence of illness due to the amount of scar tissue present. There was also evidence of a previous head injury. The medical examiner ruled that JP would not have lived more than 10-15 minutes after such injuries were inflicted upon the child. JP's cause of death was ruled blunt trauma to the abdomen with strangulation. The manner of death was ruled a homicide. Detectives determined that Castellano was the only adult in contact with JP for the 4 hours prior to this death. The autopsy results and the medical examiner's ruling lead detectives to believe that Castellano was responsible for inflicting those injuries upon 4-year-old JP. In the state of Texas, killing a child under the age of 10 is the most severe form of homicide and is chargeable by capital murder. Detectives decided to start preparing documents to charge Castellano with capital murder due to the fact that the victim was only 4 years old. Meanwhile, on Friday, July 2nd, detectives visited Castellano at an address on file and place him under arrest for an outstanding municipal court warrant of minor in possession. Castellano is read his Miranda rights and transported to the police station downtown, where he agreed to give a second statement. Mann voluntarily accompanied him to the station. Castellano said JP was choking for about 10 minutes and urinated on Castellano's left hand. He called EMS after JP urinated on him. It took EMS 10-15 minutes to arrive. Detectives document that Castellano does not put any amounts of time on the periods between JP's eating and going outside, then coming back in woozy. Castellano said he left JP because he had to go pee. He blamed the old bruises on JP's paternal grandmother, who had him the last few days. Castellano's final effort to eliminate any malicious intent in his actions was to claim that he possibly pushed too hard while he performed CPR on JP. Again, Castellano is read his Miranda rights. He is then informed by detectives that JP's death was ruled a homicide. He denied hurting JP. Castellano was confronted by detectives with the medical examiner's ruling for JP's cause of death: blunt force trauma to the abdomen and strangulation. Quickly, Castellano changed his story to fit the injuries described in medical examiner's cause and manner of death report. He blamed the head injury on a car accident, which occurred 3 months prior, in which JP fell to the floor and injured his head. JP also fell from the bed, which resulted in the bump on the back of his head. Castellano never admitted to any criminal acts. Castellano was advised by detectives that he was being charged with capital murder for causing the death of JP. He was then transported to the magistrate's office for processing. Mann is interviewed by detectives for a second time. She repeated the story that Castellano gave her. She did not believe that he caused JP's death. On July 2nd, Castellano saw a magistrate judge and was given a $500,000 bond. He was booked at the Bexar County Jail the next day to await his court proceedings. On Saturday, July 3rd, the offense report was changed from apparent sudden death to capital murder. By late December, he was officially indicted by a grand jury and arraigned in the 186th District Court. Castellano entered a plea of not guilty. In February of 2006, his public defender filed a motion for a bond reduction hearing. The judge granted Castellano the bond reduction. Castellano's family paid his $100,000 bond after he spent 6 months incarcerated. He was released from the Bexar County Jail on February 11, 2005. Fast forward 17 months. On Wednesday, July 12, 2006, Castellano's capital murder trial finally began. The Bexar County prosecutor, Lori Valenzuela, painted a horrific picture of JP's last moments of life at the hands of his stepfather. Castellano was new to the life of a house husband and primary child care provider to 3 small children, while his girlfriend worked as a stripper. While Mann was performing lap dances for strange men, drinking alcohol, and living the exciting life Castellano once knew, he was stuck at home caring for their young children. He was pissed off about the situation. On July 1, 2004, after Mann left for work, he physically beat 4-year-old JP out of anger. He inflicted a blow to JP's head, which caused him to convulse and urinate on himself. JP vomited from the pain and trauma inflicted upon his little body. Castellano then inflicted a deadly blow to JP's abdomen with a baseball bat. The blow was so forceful that it nearly cut little JP's liver in 2 pieces. Castellano then strangled JP until he lost consciousness. He left JP's little body there for hours as he fabricated a cover-up story. He then called 911, and upon the arrival of EMS, he told them a story of what occurred. Castellano's version of events didn't add up to the brutal scene the paramedics were observing. On Thursday, San Antonio Fire Department paramedic Chuck Ans testified to the following. When emergency workers responded to a call that 4-year-old JP stopped breathing, they found the boy's cold and bruised body laid out on the kitchen table and an anxious Castellano giving conflicting stories of what happened. SAFD paramedic Ans told other workers to pay close attention to what they saw because there's something not right with this scene. Ans also testified that JP had a black eye, bruises in various stages of healing, and a waxy appearance that would indicate to me that the patient has been down for quite some time. Castellano took the stand during his trial and testified in his own defense. Castellano admitted that he wasn't happy about Mann's work, although that's how he met her. He also said he didn't think it was tough to stay home, clean house, and care for 3 small children. They taught me how to be a father. The day JP died, the day began normally, Castellano testified. The couple slept in, and then Mann picked up Happy Meals for the children before heading off to the day shift at Paradise Entertainment. Later, Castellano sent the 2 older children outside to play. He said JP came in and said he had fallen. Castellano gave the boy some water, which he had trouble drinking, he said. Then Castellano gave him his leftover chicken nuggets and left the room to continue his housework. A few minutes later, he heard gagging. He was gagging, and from that point, I didn't know what to do, he said. I remember screaming at him, "What's wrong with him?" Castellano said he tried patting JP on the back, and that stuff started coming out his mouth and nose. He then started pumping on his stomach in an attempt at CPR, he said. After that, he called 911. Medical examiner Dr. Jennifer Rulon testified to the following. What killed JP could not have been caused by falling, choking on a chicken nugget, or clumsy CPR, Deputy Medical Examiner Dr. Jennifer Rulon testified. CPR is not a reasonable cause to explain a liver that is almost torn in 2. If a person were struck that hard, he would collapse in shock and die within minutes, she said. When asked if someone could drink water after suffering such a blow, she replied, "That's about as close to impossible as is possible, and it does not explain the bruising on the neck and the broken blood vessels in JP's eyes and face," she said. Describing herself as the most likely of the county's medical examiners to see situations in terms of possible shades of gray, Rulon said, "We were way out of the accident range, in my opinion, way out of the undetermined range and into the homicide range." According to the San Antonio Express-News, during closing arguments, Bexar County prosecutor Lori Valenzuela told the jury that Castellano's stories to EMS workers just didn't add up. He was pissed off for whatever reason that day and took it out on a 4-year-old child, and that is just wrong. She reminded the jury that the autopsy revealed that JP had been strangled and hit so hard in the abdomen that his liver had been split almost in 2. District Attorney Valenzuela argued that unemployed Castellano targeted JP because he resented Mann's work as a stripper. On July 18, 2006, a 12-panel jury found 22-year-old Paul Castellano guilty of capital murder and was remanded to the Bexar County Jail. The San Antonio Express-News reported that Castellano hung his head in disbelief of the verdict. At sentencing, Castellano receives a 75-year prison sentence for the capital murder of 4-year-old JP. He was given credit for the 226 days he served in the Bexar County Jail while he awaited trial. 10 days after sentencing, Castellano and his appellate attorney filed their notice of appeal in the 4th Court of Appeals. Currently, Castellano has exhausted all of his appeals. He is currently serving out his 75-year sentence in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.